Hey everybody, the Not Quite Reverend Ron Peterson here, doing a follow-up to my last talk. And in that talk I mentioned that central to the Judeo-Christian tradition, that thing that conservatives and evangelicals love to reference when condemning progressive ideas, is the Ten Commandments. It is the foundation upon which the Judeo-Christian structure is built. I also mentioned how Donald Trump, then private citizen Donald Trump, in collaboration with Fox Broadcasting, once put out false info about President Barack Obama, saying that he wasn't born here in the United States and therefore not allowed to be president. It was a conspiracy theory that was long debunked, but he kind of resurrected it in 2011 for whatever reasons we don't know. And I mentioned the spiritual damage that would do to our society because it was a violation of the Ninth Commandment. I referenced my Torah here to explain that more in depth. And when I closed, I said that there was an even worse violation that Trump made during his time running for president, and evangelicals were actually right with him on it. And it goes like this. In 2016, Trump and his campaign team made a political calculation that the path to winning the presidency, or at least the GOP nomination, hinged on support from a specific demographic, and that was evangelical Christians. And that was a heavy lift given his publicly adulterous behavior and, let's say, decadent lifestyle, right? Also, he'd never spoken publicly about his faith or about the Bible, maybe perhaps referenced in passing once or twice, but it was never a central piece of his persona, right? But now when he's running for president, it's his favorite book. He wouldn't elaborate on it, though. He wouldn't say like what his favorite Bible passages were. He kind of ignored that. Media attempts to ask him that. He dismissed them, saying this was very personal to him. But still, he thought the Bible was an amazing book, right? Okay, so everything sort of came to be exposed when he made a trip to Liberty University to speak there to the student body, to in outreach to the evangelicals. And he opened up a Bible to give a quote, and he opened it up and he said, 2 Corinthians. And he went to reference the passage, but when I heard him say 2 Corinthians, knowing that we actually call it 2 Corinthians, I heard 2 Corinthians. I honest to God thought he was going to tell a joke. I thought like 2 Corinthians, walk into a bar, right? And no, it wasn't that. He says 2 Corinthians 3:17, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And that was like a blatant, obvious, and even clumsy biblical marketing scheme. He was just trying to find a Bible verse with the word liberty, and then he goes in, here we are at Liberty University. Like, there's not a whole lot of biblical theological depth to that statement. And then he concludes saying, that's the whole ball game. Really? Really? It's almost like he's saying, see how much I know the Bible? I even know this verse. And here's the bad part. I mean, I'm laughing about it, and it really would have been comical had it not been so spiritually problematic. Because all of this is the equivalence of a total violation of the third commandment, which is you shall not take God's name in vain. In other words, you shall not take God's name and use it for your own crass purposes in life. And evangelicals had to know that. If they knew their Bible at all, they know that. As I said, it's foundational to the Judeo-Christian tradition that they laud so much. And you chip away at that foundation and you threaten the viability of the entire spiritual structure. They had to know that. And here's what my Torah that I go to for the commentary. This is what the Torah has to say on that particular passage, that particular verse, that particular commandment. People must take care lest they infringe upon the sanctity of God in any manner. Jewish commentators through the ages have suggested that this prohibition is even more important than those that follow, such as murder, adultery, and theft, because they are often acted upon by passion. Those are often acted upon by passion and opportunity. But the misuse of God and God's name for one's own crass personal interests is conscious, focused, and deliberate. The conclusion that the Jewish commentators reached is that the result is a devaluation of awe and respect, and in time, the holiness of God has no further meaning. Society is deeply affected by such deterioration. And so what does it mean when we see that Donald Trump used the Bible and the Christian faith specifically for marketing purposes of his own campaign? As I said, evangelicals had to know how wrong, how sinful that was according to their Christian faith, but they didn't care. They never called him out on it. Indeed, they aided and abetted, with many of them trying to convince people that God wanted Trump to be president. As the Torah says, the result is a devaluation of awe and respect, and in time, the holiness of God has no further meaning. Society is deeply affected by such deterioration. So I want you to hear those words and ask yourself, is it any wonder that so many people, especially young ones, become disgusted and disenfranchised with the Christian faith after witnessing these political antics and this misuse of that belief system? Anyway, that's where we are now. Those evangelicals have turned the sacred into the political and profane for their own worldly purposes. This is exactly what Jesus condemned the religious leaders of doing in the first century in their collaboration with Rome. So please, conservatives and evangelicals, please spare me your sanctimonious, hypocritical lamentations about progressives causing the collapse of the Judeo-Christian tradition in our society, because you are destroying it spiritually from the inside out. Think about those things. Hey, I'll see you next time.